It's another TikTok video. Whee! Hello, sinners, and hail Sappho. It's your hostess with the mostest, Narcissa Deville, and this week I wanted to do something a little bit different and do another TikTok reaction video. Now, I know a lot of us are not super into TikTok right now because of the stunt they pulled. I personally recently got onto Red Note, really like it. I'm kind of lurking, but I'm really enjoying it. So this video is kind of inspired by a fellow YouTuber who I really enjoy, Emma Thorne. She did a video over on her channel called Questions for Atheists, where she's reacting to TikTok questions that Christians have for atheists. So I thought it would be fun to see, as someone who is more of a witch, hence my look. I should be wearing a witch hat, but whatever. As someone who is more of a witch, I thought it would be fun to answer questions to witches and just to kind of see what comes up. What are the questions that people have for witches?
Hi, how are you? Were you ever in the broom closet? And if so, what things did you do for your practice while hiding the fact that you practice? How were you sneaky? I want to...
Okay, so, this is not quite the question that I expected it to be, but this is kind of cute. I will answer this. Like every other closet, no, I really wasn't. With being a witch, I think I found it at a time in my life where I was so shameless, I guess is the word, that I just didn't care, and I was just so over it. So my mother knew, a lot of people at my school knew. I think I've talked about this in a previous video. For whatever reason, I was under the impression that if I told people that I was a witch, they would be less inclined to assume that I was gay, and that did not work out so well for me. But yeah, so it just became a thing where I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna start telling people I'm a witch, and then they'll be so distracted by that they won't make assumptions about my sexuality that I'm not ready to confront yet to these people that I don't really know / trust, whatever. Anyway, needless to say, that didn't work because it never works, but that was kind of my goal. That was my plan. And so, yeah. So I was never really in the broom closet per se, at least not, like I said, in school or with my mother. But I think to a lot of my family, I never really discussed it. Even now, we don't really discuss things like that, like religion, things like that. A lot of my family is Christian and Catholic. It just never felt necessary to bring up. I guess I would say it was a don't ask, don't tell. You know what I mean? It was just, we just didn't discuss it. It didn't come up. We didn't discuss it. And
what purpose does your practice in witchcraft serve in your life? Why are you doing it? Why is it important to you to do full moon rituals and new moon rituals? Why are you doing altar work? Why?
Now, okay, so this one's kind of tough for me. Obviously, there's more questions. These are a lot of questions. I was expecting maybe one question. A lot of people are asking essay questions. Jeez. Okay, so I think this is actually a very important question to ask yourself. Why is this important to you? Why is this something that you're doing? Why do you do the rituals that you do? Now, it's so funny. Because I am not a Wiccan specifically, I think these are kind of questions that tend to be for more Wiccans. And I will say that one of the things that I learned early on in my witch career, if you will, not all Wiccans are witches and not all witches are Wiccan. So in my case, I'm not specifically practicing a lot of the Wiccan rituals. I'm not necessarily practicing a lot of full moon rituals or new moon rituals or anything like that. I have occasionally over the course of my life, but for the most part, I do altar work. I'm not at my altar currently, but I do have my altar upstairs. And so altar work is something that is very important to me. I love my altar space. I'm going to eventually do a video probably after I move again where I create my dream altar, because I definitely have a lot of things that I would want for that, and like the why. Why is it important to me? Why do I do this? I'm going to answer that specific part of it just because that's like, I think, the most interesting question. You know, it's funny. I found Wicca originally and witchcraft at a time in my life where I really, really desperately needed something different. And I think in the beginning, I started doing it because, or I started trying to practice some of the things because I wanted to, I don't know, I guess I wanted to feel like I was, doing it properly. If that's a silly thing to say, but when you're 14, 15, of course, that's kind of going to be your answer. Like, you want to feel like you're doing this thing properly. And, at that point in my life, there was no TikTok. YouTube was around, but I didn't really follow any witches on YouTube. It was, back then it was like TV show clips in a different way than it is now. So like, I didn't really follow any personalities, I don't think, all the way back in, maybe I did in 2015, but I don't think, no, that wasn't 2015. I'm so sorry. When I was 15, that's a totally different time. I think YouTube was like brand new at that point. So I don't remember necessarily what I was doing, or like what I was, YouTube wasn't really a thing for that. I was really at that time in my life reading like blogs and reading like, websites that were specifically dedicated to Wicca and witchcraft and all of this stuff. So for me personally, I think back then it was kind of like, I want to feel like I'm, doing the rituals and doing like what's expected of you, quote unquote. That's obviously not how any of that works, but like in my head, I felt like, okay, this is what's expected of me, so this is what I need to do. That said, I think now, and I will say this, I did not have an altar for the first, I would say, okay, so I was 15, so I've been a Wiccan at least 16, no, I'm 33, so 16, 17, 18, 19. I've been a Wiccan 19 years at this point, almost 20 years. So I would say that for the first 15 years of my practice, I didn't have an altar. I didn't know where I would put one, or like what I wanted on it. I really was just not, it was difficult for me. So I didn't really have one until probably 2020, 2021. I want to say probably 2021 is when I had my first altar space. And it became important to me because I felt like, I've been practicing and calling myself a witch for so long. I've never really had this altar space, which people talk about all the time, like witches especially talk about all the time. It's like having an altar, having this place where you go and you commune with your deities, whoever they are, and kind of like just have this spiritual moment. And I didn't know what that was like. And I really had like previously, prior to that, for like 5 years, I think, if not more, I really just didn't have a connection to, the deities that I was worshiping at that time. I really didn't have a connection to like my own spirituality at that point in my life. I was just kind of like, I was in my late 20s or whatever. So it was just kind of like, well, I've been doing this for over a decade at this point, so I'm just going to stick with it. And I really didn't feel super connected. I was just kind of like staying with it because it was just familiar to me. And I think that was not the best way to go about things. And so, I did pray to the goddess as like a general thing, but I just never felt really connected in that way. It was just not what I wanted. And by the way, I chose specifically to pray to the goddess as like a, very vague thing, because I was, I think, still taking a lot of my Catholic upbringing with me. I think I was taking with me like I had prayed to, the Virgin Mary previously when I was a Catholic a lot. And so I think I was just taking that with me and just slapping a coat of Wiccan paint on it and calling it a day. And I don't think, obviously, that was probably not well appreciated. And so it just didn't, I didn't feel connected, especially towards the end. Like the last 5 years, I just felt very, I was trying to find a specific deity that I felt connected to. It just wasn't quite working. When I did find a deity that I felt very connected to, and I got to a point where I was just like, I want to have an altar. I want to have this space where I feel more connected. And when I started doing that, not only did I feel more deeply connected to my deity specifically, I felt more deeply connected to myself. It was really, really cool because at the time I was using a vanity that I'd bought for myself, like a makeup vanity. And so I was using, like, here is my mirror, and I've written affirmations on it, and I'm like looking at myself with these candles and this lighting and like this deity vibe, and I'm saying these affirmations to myself. I'm making myself feel better. I'm really working hard on myself, and I think that really, really, really helped me. So the why I stayed with altar work is because I had that experience of where it really made a difference in my life, and it really helped me in my life to sit down and say thank you and show gratitude and all of these things to my deity, and to have that communication and that dialogue, I think, is very, very important to me. And as far as, needless to say, I think the reasons I did it in the beginning are different from why I do it now. Now I do it because I feel more deeply connected, and it means so much more to me.
Hi, witches. Question of the day. What kind of things do you like to do in your witchcraft on a daily basis? Put it in the comments.
On a daily basis, I try to make sure that I commune with my deity at my altar daily. I am working more on meditation because I started doing that randomly and it felt really good, but then I didn't keep up with it, and I just got really down. So I think I have to get back to doing meditation. I feel so
Christians ask me as a Christian witch, and how
Christian witch. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, because I remember there were people who were telling me in the comments of my video about anti-Witchtok that there are in fact Christian witches. So I am very curious about this because I have not heard of this. I was not aware this was a thing, and I'm very, very curious what the vibes are with this, because this is very much not what I would have expected, but let's just see. I'm very curious.
I respond to them. Call this like an FAQ thing.
Oh boy.
Hi, I'm Annie. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Bible from a Christian college.
Bachelor's of Science in Bible. Okay. At a Christian college, no less. I got really good grades in Bible when I was in grade school, so I get it, but that's a lot.
Myself a Christian witch. I use that label proudly, and I get a lot of the same questions over and over. So this is like an FAQ. These are the 5 questions Christians ask me a lot.
Okay.
1, isn't being a Christian witch an oxymoron?
I mean, that's a fair question. I guess I can't answer any of these because I am not specifically a Christian witch. So, I mean, I understand that question because as someone who is not a Christian and not a Christian witch, certainly, it does sound like a contradiction in terms, especially how I grew up and how people reacted to me being a witch in Catholic school. And I guess, as I've said, Christianity and Catholicism do have a lot of overlap, and I think they are more similar than they are dissimilar. But I think there were some people who would argue that they are very, very different practices. And so, I think despite the image that online has tried to present, Catholicism is a lot more hardcore than people think it is. I think people assume, oh, you can just do whatever you want and then go to confession and it goes away, and that somehow that makes Catholicism this cool religion. And as someone who grew up Catholic, that is not ever the vibe that I've ever had, and that is not ever the experience that I've ever had. Yeah, confession is there, but you feel guilty the whole time. You feel like you're being judged the whole time. Nothing about that experience was cool. So I don't really get how they've managed to keep their image this way, and that so many people who aren't Catholic manage to view Catholicism as the cool religion. It's not. Like, yeah, okay, you can confess whatever sin and theoretically you'd still go to heaven, but like...
Answer. It would be if you thought that witchcraft equaled evil, because Christianity equals good and holy, right?
You know what I like about this, what I will say about this is I think she is making a very good point, which is that there are a lot of people who view witchcraft specifically as like inherently evil and who view Christianity as inherently good. Now, obviously, her being a Christian, I assume she's going to say that like it's still, you know, Christianity is good and witchcraft can also be good, which I agree with. I also think, hippy dippy saying this, but I think good and evil are kind of concepts and constructs, and like what is good and what is evil, I think are just kind of like, there are certain things that I think are morally wrong and I think are, you know, disgusting, but I just feel like the good versus evil and all of this, I think, are so dependent on the person, right? There's people who genuinely believe that everything that's going on right now in the political sphere is good and morally just and morally acceptable and okay. And then there are people like me who believe the exact opposite. You know, there are people who believe that someone who is poor or starving or has cancer has done something that was morally objectionable, and so, you know, they're being punished by God. Like, there are people who genuinely believe sickness and mental illness is like a punishment from God. So like, and they believe that it's morally okay for that to happen. So like, you know, I would argue that it's kind of tricky, right? You know, the question of like good versus evil, I think, is so very dependent on the eye of the beholder. What is good? What is evil? What is righteous? What is wrong? You know, all of these things, they're so dependent on who you are, and they're so dependent on your personal belief system. And so it's hard for me, you know, to a certain degree, I think I'm going to agree with what she's saying, is that I think the idea that Christianity is inherently morally good and witchcraft is inherently morally bad, I think is not a good thing and not okay and not right. I feel like, you know, obviously she's going to talk about how like Christianity is still good and witchcraft can be good. And yeah, those are both true, I suppose, depending on who you ask. So like, I'm not going to watch all of this. I think I kind of get the gist. I'm going to call it here though, because I think I've said everything that I want to say. This video did not quite turn out the way I expected. You know, I'm not complaining at all. I think it's been fun. And I think these questions were very fun and very interesting. And it was nice to be able to talk about this subject. Not quite what I expected. I kind of expected it to be like Christians' questions for witches, because that's kind of something I was familiar with. But thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to comment down below, like this video, subscribe to my channel. You can also become a member of my channel. I do have membership options. And you can also become a patron. For less than $5, you can get access to all of these special features. Behind the scenes videos, calling them Behind the Deville. You can also get access to exclusive videos that are just for patrons. Until next time, stay devilish and see you next Thursday. Whee! Oh, I got it this time!